Well, welcome everyone. It is Sunday in South Carolina here at WACH Fox 57. We're going to be coming to you each and every week, breaking down the goings-on at the State House here in Columbia. And work gets back underway just 2 days from today. So we brought in a familiar face and a new face to talk about that. Dave Wilson, our good friend, is here, and Catherine Glenn Foster, one of our new faces, to talk about business at the State House. There's always plenty of it, even when the session isn't really actually happening. They're always over there up to something.
Well, that's the thing about it, Brian. You have a legislative session that's supposed to run the second Tuesday of January to the third Thursday of May. But they've still been coming to the State House, still working on things during the off session. As a matter of fact, it's probably been one of the busiest off sessions that we've been seeing in recent years.
Yeah, and when things start Tuesday, we got a thing that's happening for the first time in about a century. The GOP with a supermajority throughout the entire House of State. That's going to shape a lot of things.
It's going to really, I think, determine how fast things go. Because you're going to have both chambers who are now with supermajorities. They can't really be stopped with the filibuster unless you have that infighting. I mean, and you know what happens on the infighting side. If they get to this place where how far are they going to go, and will you have that one or two outliers who are going to turn around and try to monkey it up? But the Democrats really don't have anything more than just a place there right now, honestly, with the way the numbers are stacking.
Yeah. Yeah, and one of the things that we know they're going to go for here in the Senate, you were telling me, is they're going to try to attack a school choice plan again, try to get that through. The previous one didn't meet muster with the state Supreme Court. They ruled public dollars can't be used to fund private education. That doesn't meet constitutional muster here in this state. That would be an area of your expertise, constitutional law, for sure. But with that supermajority, they're going to try this again, at least with some subtle tweaks.
They are. And I think when you take a look at it, the law was challenged constitutionally in South Carolina. And I think when you look at that from that standpoint, you've got to start asking the question, what can they really do?
Right, and that's when you need to bring in that team of constitutional attorneys to figure out how we craft this law to maximize parental involvement, parental say, make sure that our kids are getting that good education that we know they need. Because we need that educated workforce here in South Carolina. And this is one of the most important ways that we get there, but we need to make sure that it passes constitutional muster.
Yeah, and that'll take some fine tuning to say the very least. We've been trying to do this for I've lived here for 20 years now.
Yeah.
And school choice has been an issue each and every year.
So they've taken these incremental steps, and I mean, you talk about the way that you change law it's an incremental change over time. So as you begin to see that more people are having an opportunity to get a choice about where their kids are going to school, finding the education that's going to be the best for that particular child, instead of the system that we've been having, which is, okay, it's whatever school you're zoned for and whatever your zip code is. Yeah. And I think this is the place where I think the question has come up as to how does that impact what goes on with the education of every student? Mm-hmm. Is it being tailored to the particular needs of the students themselves, or are we just kind of like throwing money out at the wind? Mm-hmm. And there's a real question on that you've got to ask. I mean, so you think about this, for those of you who are at home, you think about what's going to be going on with my children. Do I want the school that they're going to be zoned for? Is there somewhere else that they could be able to go? And in that particular case, school choice, a lot of people hate this word voucher.
Yes, and that was the last one was positioned as.
Right, yeah. And they're really concerned about that. Mm-hmm. So.
Right, but it's really about raising the educational experience for all children so that each and every one of our South Carolina children is able to get a quality education that is tailor-made for them. Yeah. So they get to go to the school that's going to be best suited to providing their educational needs. That's the goal of school choice. And I believe that with the supermajority, we're going to be able to get this through and get it done properly this time so that we don't have issues with the Supreme Court.
Right.
When we say the supermajority, you've broken down what that means. Mm-hmm. So I think the concept in a lot of people's minds is where does accountability come from? Instead of just muscling things through.
Right.
You know, so when you have a balance in each chamber, the other party can sometimes have some hold another one accountable. Where does that come in now? Is that up to constituents? Is that up to us as observers? to ask tougher
So I think
questions?
you've got to start looking at it from a number of different positions. You know, if you're watching right now, you understand how important it is to actually know what's going on in politics, to understand what's happening, and so as you do so, your involvement is so vital. And so, Kim, I mean, you look at it from an advocacy standpoint. Without advocates there, you don't have an ability to have the community voice. But the thing that you have to think about here is, where does the balance of power, to your question, where does that balance of power come from? Typically, you've seen Republicans on one side and Democrats on the other. Well, you have that in the House and you have that in the Senate, but you also have that between the House and the Senate.
Yeah.
And, you know, the House will move things through very quickly, but the Senate can be a lot more deliberative.
That's true, but then you also have the voice of the people, because it's really your voice that is most important here. Every time you write an email to one of your representatives, anytime you make a phone call or even show up in person, they know that there are thousands more people who have that same opinion, that same concern, and they really start listening because they know that it's up to us to hold them accountable. So that is another critical factor here, in addition to, of course, the Supreme Court, as we've seen.
The ultimate arbiter.
Right.
Exactly. We have the system for a reason, and when we have the Supreme Court able to step in and say, hang on, not so fast, we need to slow things down and make sure that we do it right, then that's that other voice in the process that can really make sure that our state is heading in the right direction.
Because there are a lot of people, there are a lot of folks who I've talked to in the Democratic Party who are like, you know, we really don't have much of a voice in this anymore.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of ways that the numbers have switched themselves out, but you have so many new members in the legislature, and I think we're going to talk about that a little bit later, because the fresh faces that are there that are coming in on Tuesday when they begin, they are the folks who are the newly elected folks coming into the State House, and they're going to start bringing in a little bit of their own moxie to the debate now, because there's this sense of there's more of us than them, and there's going to be a little bit of that kind of freer spirit that I think that I know at least the Speaker of the House is trying to keep tamped down.
One thing that's already in effect, takes effect this month, is the no cell phones in school, no electronic personal devices in schools. That was attached to the state budget as a proviso item. This is not a law. It's a proviso item.
Though your students are going to think that.
Yeah, they are going to think that.
It's not a law.
There are penalties attached to it.
There are.
But it has to be in effect when everyone's going back to school this month, after the holiday break. And that was something that was put through without a supermajority. That was just something that was attached. Just say, let's stick that on the budget.
Right.
But what does it really mean? Because each district had to craft their own individual policy to meet the standard that the budget sets forth.
So let's break it down real quick so that you begin to understand how this actually took place. There was a question that had come up as to whether or not there should be cell phone usage in our public schools, because they can be distractions. Kids are playing games, they're sitting there texting each other.
Yeah.
Where's the level of control? And it's very interesting that there were senators who were like, I'm tired of hearing about this. Something has to be done. And you know, when you're a hammer, every problem is a nail. So the Senate went back through and decided, well, we don't have time to pass a new law. We'll just add it as a proviso in the budget. So that's basically like saying, we're going to take the budget, we're going to add a line item and says, and if you want school funding,
do this.
In South Carolina, you got to restrict the use of cell phones in the classroom. Well, that got through. It didn't have a bit of debate. It didn't have any, or no bills, no discussion, no public input. And so now the State Department of Education has had to go to all 79 school districts across the state and say, come up with your own plan. And that cannot always create a level of fairness.
It definitely does not. And you know, as people who have teenagers, we're seeing
You both know this.
Yeah, we
one.
done.
We're hearing a lot about this. Kids being kids, they've already figured out ways around some of these rules. As a parent, I'm sitting there thinking, well, think about the times that I have to text my daughter in the middle of the day. I have to check on when pickup time is, or any number of different issues where I need an answer right then, and I can't get it because her phone's locked up.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
There are a lot of people split on this one. I know teachers like it because it does reduce the distraction, but they also don't want to have to be the police for it either. So there's a delicate balance there.
And it's where
some parents like it, some people don't.
Well, that's where the State Department of Education and the board of the State Department of Education said, school districts, you're going to have to come up with your own plan.
Yeah.
And So now you have this place of, okay, so what are we going to do? What is our rule? You know, you got kids in Lexington 1 that are following a certain rule. You've got kids in Lexington 2 who may be doing a different rule. Kids in Richland 1 or Richland 2 may be doing something completely different. And that's the part where when you don't take something like this through a legislative process and get feedback, not only from educators, but from parents, and from students, and from different things. And so it's really one of those places that's created a level of discord for schools and an angst between schools and students. Because think about this, your teenager who's in high school right now has never known life without an iPhone being in existence. The iPhone came out 18 years ago this summer. And when that happened, it's changed the way that we think about it. I mean, we sit here and we text back and forth in preparation for the show. And as we think about how that goes and our access to information, this is a place where you're getting this kind of angstiness among students and frustration among parents going, so what are we going to be doing?
And we need to be using this as a tool. That's what a phone is. They can be utilized in class. We see students on exactly. We see students on laptops taking notes, all different kinds of ways that we can use these appropriately. At the very least, let's not have an 8-hour block of time when a student can't access a phone. Let's at least open it up during lunch or breaks, so they don't have to sneak off to the bathroom and
run outside
or put their iPhone over down their like a
where people hit their cigarettes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, think of every way think about this. Think of every way that you ever decided when you were in school that you were going to try to get away from something. Now try to do it with an electronic.
Good luck.
Yeah.
It's like, good luck. That's great.
Well, now that is, we won't say the law of the land, but the rule.
The rule.
We have an interesting tweet.
And has dollars associated with it. So, yeah.
We have a tweet from Justin Bamberg about a week ago. Directly speaking to this. If we could see that real quick.
Justin Bamberg has, he and a few other members.
There it is.
Yeah.
Where he's essentially saying, this is the way it is. And do not call me if your child gets in trouble, because this is now the rule.
Right. Yeah. And so this tweet right here that Justin put out, Justin Bamberg, a representative from Bamberg County, he was saying, everybody know and understand the rule is here. Do not call me, because I'm not going to do anything.
I can't help you.
And I can't help you because as much as you want to complain, as much as you want to go have and you're constitutionally guaranteed a redress of grievances. It's in the First Amendment of the Constitution. And yet at the same time, once this is in place, your representative really can't do much about it. And Brian, we've always said this. We've always said that the government that's closest to you has the biggest impact on you. And this is a prime example where the decisions about what's going to be going on in your schools goes all the way back to what we did in early November when we elected school board members. And I'm going to tell you this right now, and no offense to all of you who might be watching, do you actually remember the name of the school board member that you voted for? Because you probably had 3 or 4 that you could choose from. We all knew it was going to be either, Donald Trump or Kamala Harris. When it came down to
down ballot stuff.
But down ballot stuff, that's where the real, hey, what's going on in my community matters. And if you don't know your school board members, we recommend right now that you start figuring that out. You can go to scvotes.gov and be able to see who your elected officials are, at least all the way down to the state
where
level.
you live. You got a simple ballot next time you have to go to the polls.
Right.
Yeah.
Here's something that's going to be done from up top, though. Reforming energy in this state. Our population is booming. The need is there. The grid needs to be addressed. This thing dates back very far to the failed nuclear project up there at VC Summer, up in Jenkinsville. We're still feeling the sting on that one.
I still felt the sting when I was pulling out my app the other day. No offense to my phone, but pulling up the app the other day to sit there and pay my bill.
To pay me too, all of us.
Yeah.
But it was addressed a slight bit in the spring, but it never got anywhere.
Well, no, because the Speaker of the House put a bill up, and it was an omnibus bill. So when you hear the term an omnibus bill, it means we're trying to cram everything into one big document and trying to get it across the finish line. But when that happened, what ended up going on is there were members of the Senate who were basically saying, whoa, wait a minute. We don't want to do all the things that are going on here. And so this is a place where I think when you look at what's going on with energy policy, we got to go rewind the clock a little bit. We have had 1 million people move into or joined the population of South Carolina since 2007. So 18 years ago, an extra million people. It's only going to be 15 more years until we have a whole other million people moving into South Carolina. So when you think about that, but then you think about the businesses that have come into South Carolina in the last several years. You've got Boeing, you've got Google, you've got Volvo, you've got the new plant up here.
More and more data centers are coming.
More and more data centers that are coming on. So all of these things are coming into play. And guess what, folks? They use the same juice you do to be watching what you're watching right now. And that is a place where, what are we going to do with that? I mean, how do you turn around and meet a demand with a growing population? And so the Speaker of the House has said, we're going to do energy reform. We're going to do the things that need to be done. How does that play itself out is the real question, because you remember, if you're with Dominion, you were with SCANA, and SCANA was in a deal with Santee Cooper to build these nuclear reactors up in Fairfield County.
And they're just sitting there.
And they're sitting there right now. So the plan has been, how can we get those, one of which is more than halfway done, how can we get those back up and going? Well, keep in mind, the people who were actually doing it the first time are currently enjoying this show right now from federal prison.
Some of them are.
And so with that, keep in mind that the state is now looking at options as to, can we get other companies involved? These companies that are wanting to use all the data, what can they do about that? Yeah. Can they become a partner with us?
So we're going to find out, and it's going to be a long process. The last item I know that we want to address today is, and this is one I know you can speak to. When people hear the words tort reform, that doesn't mean much to them. They probably think you're talking about a baked good. I mean,
I like tart reform.
But this is important. We've seen a lot of small businesses shutter their doors, mainly restaurants, places that serve alcohol. It's hard for them to get liquor liability insurance. And there are people that this needs to be addressed in some way. We've seen a lot of long-time establishments close up, and I don't know how this works. I don't know what they're going to do to fix this, but it's a need.
It really is. So in the last 5 years, we've seen so many small businesses, especially these restaurants, these bars, shutter their doors. It's been a tough 5 years between COVID and lawyers, if I may. And a lot of that has to do with what tort reform is trying to address, because there's this concept in the law that you can, let's say you have a drunk driver. Let's say they went out, they drank at maybe 3-4 different bars, and they hit someone, okay? They get sued. And so then who are you going to collect that judgment from? You get maybe $1 million judgment. Who do you collect it from? And with this legal concept called joint and several liability, it means that everyone's liable. And so you can go to any one of those defendants, any one of those bars, or the drunk driver themselves, figure out who has the most money, the best insurance policy, and collect the entire amount from them. Who benefits from this? Lawyers. Because then that one who had to pay it all can then turn around and sue all those other defendants and try to get the money back. And it creates a real win for these tort lawyers, but a loss for our small businesses. And so they are shutting their doors, I think, faster than ever before, because they are getting hit with these just hefty insurance bills, this threat of lawsuits, and it's harming all of us. You know, you think about your business owners, and you think about you when you want to go out of a Thursday or Friday night. Where are you going to get a bite to eat? Well, now that neighborhood restaurant is gone.
Yeah. A lot of them are.
And so when you have a situation like that, this is kind of how it has broken itself out. We had a conversation with a gentleman who owns a restaurant. He had 2 restaurants. Both of them had a bar in them. He had to shut down one of the bars in one of the restaurants because he said, I went from paying $5,000 to $8,000 a year for liability insurance. Now I'm paying $50,000 a year.
If he can get a policy at all.
If he can get a policy, and that's the threat that's coming onto businesses right now. So when you hear the term tort reform, it is, how do we make it so that it's fair if there is a situation that goes on, that the person who has been injured has an ability to collect from the damages. I mean, that's why you have the lawyers there. But at the same time, how do you not penalize every single business all the way down the chain because of one person's inability to make a wise decision and wise choice?
Right. You want to protect the victim and make sure that they can get what they're due, without having restaurants around us shut down.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. Lots of things to watch, not only this week, but in the months ahead.
Yeah, there are.
Here in South Carolina. We're going to be doing this every week.
Right.
They're going to be here. We're going to bring a lot of people in here to talk about this on Sundays in South Carolina to keep you up to date on what this actually means to you. We're not going to go into how the sausage is made. We're going to tell you what it means for you at home. So, Catherine, Dave, thank you as always.
Thanks, Brian.
Looking forward to a fun time
Yeah.
over the next few
Absolutely.
months.